Hey everybody, Will Brink here, brinkzone.com. Just returned from the Mr. Olympia, or I guess what the name would now be, the Olympia Weekend, because of course it's a lot more than the Mr. Olympia. And I wanted to do a quick summary of that. Hopefully people can see me on the on my personal Facebook page streaming. All day long I could not get my Facebook page to accept that this was streaming. So it's supposed to be streaming on the Brink Zone page, on my YouTube page, and my personal page. And I don't know if it's actually working on my personal page. So I'm unfortunately going to probably miss a bunch of people who are supposed to be watching this damn thing. But Facebook, as we all know, has not been the same. Well, it's been kind of wonky for, I don't know, a while now, but it has not been the same since it went dead for 6 hours, coincidentally, after that whole whistleblower thing came out on 60 Minutes. But we won't go there because then I might get banned or traced down or something. So this is supposed to be streaming on 3 places. Of course, my most popular page with the most people who would be trying to watch this may or may not be able to see it. I don't know. If you're on the on my personal page on Facebook and you're actually watching, seeing me stream this, to say something in the comment box, like, yeah, I can see it or something. So anyway, I don't know what's up with Facebook. So I have not been to an Olympia in a long, long time. The show that I used to go to almost every year from the mid 90s on up till about 4 or 5 years ago was the Arnold. The Arnold was kind of my show. Reasons for that being it was a much shorter flight to Columbus. It's a much bigger show. Like the expo and stuff is a much bigger show. The people at the Arnold always gave me press credentials without real issue, so I could go wherever I wanted and get in shows and all that. So I kind of went to the Arnold. I used to go to the Olympia occasionally when it was at the Mandalay in Vegas, and that was a lot of fun. But when they moved it from the Mandalay, I didn't go as often, and it was also a much more difficult show to get press credentials for, because at the time it was really strictly, the Weeder publications. And if you didn't write or shoot or whatever for the Weeder publications, they were very stingy about giving out those press credentials. So this was the first Olympia I've been to in a long time. And one reason I went is in Florida. So it was like a 2-hour drive. So kind of a no-brainer. 2, I was able to get press credentials. Dan Solomon was nice enough to get me press credentials. So shout out to Dan. Thanks a lot for that, Dan. He did a great job on this show. I mean, considering, what a year it's been, for them to produce and put this show on must have been, really, really a lot of work. So I hopefully I don't want to come across as overly critical, if I have anything that maybe comes across as like not a perfect show. But all things considered, difficult, must have been a hell of a show to put on. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask those, or as I go down. I'm not going to go through all the classes and all that, obviously, because that would just be boring. I'm gonna throw out my sort of overall impressions of a couple of key things, and like I say, if anybody has comments, whatever. Expo wise, I always look forward to the expo because I like to see. I see a lot of people I know from the industry. You look at new gadgets and equipment and toys and supplements and all that. But this one was actually on the smaller side. Now, again, COVID did not help that. I'm sure it kept that to a minimum. So the expo was, an hour or so to walk around versus, it could take like all afternoon to walk around a proper size expo. So, let's just get the big guys out of the way, the obvious guys out of the way for some discussion here. What my thoughts were. I'm sure, as you are aware, Ramey won again. So let me say this about that. I understand, of course, that when I was judging, 20 years, well, not 20 years, but I judged for 20 years, the head judge, his name was Dave Berman. He was a good guy, but, he used to say to us, like, hey, guys, remember, above all, remember, conditioning, symmetry, proportion are all important, but bodybuilding is about muscle, and keep that in mind when you're judging. And, I and a lot of us other judges, I don't think we were totally in agreement that, of course, muscle is what defines bodybuilding, especially at the large open. I still do not feel that is always should be like the overriding end point to making your decision as a judge. That's what I think. So you know where I'm going with this. So Ramey was humongous. He was over 300 pounds. And now there's been other bodybuilders that were over 300 pounds in the past, but none of them won the Olympia. Now that is, a 20 pounds or something, I think above maybe as big as Ronnie ever was. But he was not in as good a condition as he was the year before by all opinions. And I wasn't there, but I've seen pictures of him, and I was there for this one. Now, honestly, basically, pretty much every guy there in the lineup was holding a film of water. Almost everyone. I'm going to get to one guy. Pretty much everybody up there, all the guys at that level, were holding a film of water that you just would not have seen. The top 10 or certainly the top 5 guys of the Olympia. In the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, up to about mid 2000s, where just like striving for size was pretty much it. So with that in mind, if it were up to me, from where I was sitting, the guy who I really felt brought the package was Haiti, who took third. Now I felt, and now a lot of people in the audience and commenters and also felt the same way. And these are people who have a lot of experience. These aren't just like fans who are like, Haiti got robbed. Don't know that much per se. Let's say how to judge a show. No, for the most part, it was fairly universal. I think that people felt that Haiti. Now, third is not bad, of course, but to be perfectly honest with you, as far as the total package, Haiti was dry. He was, proportionate. He has no major, weak points. His thighs are a little overbearing, but we haven't, Ramey. But I mean, head to toe, back to front, side to side, all that. I think Haiti was the total package, and should have been given that title. I would have had Curry second. I think Curry was in the right spot. His legs just don't come in with his upper body, and he was not. Again, he was very lean. But again, the dryness, the level of crisp dryness, you just don't see today. So now Ramey, on the other hand, again, he was 303 pounds. He brings the beef, obviously, but his thighs are so oversized for the rest of his body. His calves, really lag compared to his thighs. He was hard, but of course, in better shape the year before. And I would have had him third or fourth. Again, we've had big guys at the Olympia plenty of times, really, really big guys who, if you're, unlike guys like Yates. Now, Yates used to be bigger than everybody on stage, but nobody beat Yates in conditioning. Yates was the leanest, granite hard person up there. So yes, he was a big guy, but you also weren't going to beat Yates, on conditioning. So, I didn't feel that. I feel that the Olympia Open, the big guys is not really living up to its potential as to what it could be. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm sure you guys all feel away. If you're a little older, you have that back in the day sense of how things used to be. But I really think that when you start giving the biggest guy up there, the Mr. Olympia, and versus the guy who brings the total package of leanness, proportion, symmetry, posing, and all that, then of course you're sending a very specific message, which is, bigger is better, even in the face of proportions being off and conditioning being not up to snuff. So, and I doubt there's anybody who knows bodybuilding, including some of the. I think that Lee Haney and Sean Ray during their live feed, yeah, they were hinting at that too. I mean, they weren't going to just say it outright, but I kind of thought that they were, when they mentioned Haiti, they were talking about, again, when you used to see Sean Ray and Lee Haney on stage, which I have. These were some conditioned guys. Again, Lee in his day was the big guy on stage, but he was still dry and crisp and lean as could be. And Sean, of course, would have striations on his striations. So, could Sean have come in bigger and taken up more space if he even wanted to? But of course he could, but he was not going to give up a conditioning for it. And I think that's the way what we should be seeing, right? Hey, David. David said, what is your opinion about the future bodybuilding? Well, let's go down this a little further, because actually I think the next class down, David, actually, in a sense, is trying to be the next class, right? So if you've been following bodybuilding, so you know that the class that the IFBB created to try to, I think, to fill the gap for people that are talking about what I'm talking about is when, which of course is the classic physique, right? So the classic physique, there was no surprises in the classic physique this year. Bumstead won again. He looked phenomenal. It was actually the same lineup. So to answer your question, so David asked, do you think they'll get bigger with even bigger belly? Actually, I have to say this year, David, the belly issue was not a big problem, at least not bigger problem than we've seen in the past. I think they were doing maybe a better job of controlling it, because a lot of the time, as far as that belly thing, it's actually about controlling it. A lot of the guys that, we used to say didn't have a belly or wouldn't have a belly. It wasn't that they didn't have one. It's that they were very aware of it and were controlling it the whole time up there, breathing and holding their waist in. And that's just tiring. I mean, but, a lot of them, I think, had kind of forgotten that. So I didn't see bigger bellies than usual, or even I wasn't even as aware of I might have been in the past. Now, maybe I'm just getting desensitized to the big bellies, but honestly, I didn't see that the top guys, they weren't like having bellies spilling out. And I think they're being more aware of it. They're doing a better job of controlling it. And, maybe they've changed some other things, on the back end to be, maybe they've gotten some criticism on that. So I don't know how much bigger they can get. I mean, you got a guy like Ramey walking on stage over 300 pounds, lean. I'm not gonna say ripped, but, lean. Man, I don't know how much bigger a person can get without, dying. And we'll have to get to that also. So Future Bodybuilding, IFBB, I think they did a really nice job. I was a little critical or skeptical of classic physique, but the classic physique really does a nice job of filling the gap where people, who want to see the class that looked more like 80s, 90s, early 2000 bodybuilding can be found. The obvious focus is where I think it should be. It's on conditioning, it's on symmetry, it's on proportion, it's on posing and muscularity. I think that's really where probably all bodybuilding should be. But I think that's actually been a fairly smart move on their part, because, the IFBB and promoters, this is a business. And so I think if they start to see and notice that the attention and the interest is leaning more and more towards that classic physique, and I think it is, I think that Bumstead got a lot of attention. A lot of people were looking forward to seeing him. I think a lot of people were, very supportive of his winning. I think that was really good. I mean, that the energy about, the classic physique and how they saw him and other people was really positive. And so I think, as always, the market will dictate what you're going to see on stage, like any sport, right? So I think classic physique does a nice job of satisfying, what we're talking about. And as always, if we, the fans and the followers and the industry support that look more, that's what we're going to see more of. So, keep that in mind. So, top five, my personal placing for the top five, I would have had first place would have been Haiti easily. And I think I would have, because of Ramey's, not being in his best shape. He actually got better at night. He really did get better at night. And in the IFBB, the night show still does count. So maybe that slipped by. But again, his proportions, those thighs of his are just crazy. And they're not like swept. I mean, they're not like big and sweepy and good looking thighs. They're just very blocky. Now, I will say that from the side, when Ramey hits a side shot, it is unbelievable. I mean, nobody does a side chest or a side tricep like Ramey does, because those thighs of his and his hamstrings just, pop out, and he's got good tries and stuff. So that's my feelings on that. I thought Hunter, I think that Hunter has a tremendous potential there, shape-wise. I think if he learns to tighten up, if he can get crisper and drier, but honestly, I mean, none of them were. So I don't know. And to go back on my own word, is he going to be rewarded for it? I mean, if Haiti was not rewarded for coming in that level of conditioning, is somebody like Hunter, is he then motivated to focus on that, versus just getting bigger? But, Hunter looks great. I mean, he has basically his, he's got his father's shape and genetics for size and his mother's height, basically. And so he just looks fantastic. So, all right. So let's, we talked a little bit, unless, again, if anybody's got questions or, ask me something, I'm just going to kind of go down the line a little bit about who did what. So the 212s, The 212s, again, look great. The 212s are as you'd expect, where the conditioning can be found, where, great shape, good conditioning as you expect. I have a little bit of two minds about the 212s, to be honest with you, because, this is an open sport. This is, I have a hard, though I understand that it allows shorter, smaller guys to compete. I've always had a little bit of an issue just that, in pro sports, track and field or football or whatever, you don't, if you can't compete at that highest level, you just can't compete. And I don't know. I've always been a little bit conflicted on the whole concept of a 212. And unfortunately, we can't really get past the 212s without talking about the death of George Peterson. So if you don't know, so a guy named George Peterson, he's a 212. He was found passed away in his room. And I didn't know George, but by all accounts, I heard he was a very nice guy. Everybody just really spoke highly of him, and really kind of sad. So, what's going on there? Almost invariably, if a bodybuilder passes away, the day of or the day before a show, it's always diuretics. Or 99% of the time, it's diuretics. It has nothing to do with steroids. It's a diuretic based problem that causes dehydration. Obviously, it causes mineral imbalances, and the heart, can stop. I haven't read any autopsies. Now, to that discussion, I'm not going to go into this too deep about him because I think we need to have another show about that. I think I'm going to put together like a roundtable discussion about. It's been a really bad year for bodybuilders, as you all know. Now, not a lot of bodybuilders dying as far as like right by the show, but boy, this has been a hell of a year for fairly young guys and women, a few of them too, passing away. And I think we need to have a conversation about that. I do want to say, however, that again, I think we also have to keep in mind relative risk. I mean, when you push the body, any sport where you're pushing the body to its limits, has relative risk. Football players with TBIs and brain damage, F1 drivers dying in fiery crashes, MMA fighters, broken jaws, and so on and so forth. Risk is a thing in high level sports, and high level competitive bodybuilding is not a healthy sport. It's not and I think that was a mistake maybe back in the day, where the magazines and kind of started to present it as a healthy thing, but nobody gets into high level sports for their health. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, and I think we have to be honest about that. So the real question is how do we mitigate the risk to these athletes while we accept that there is, of course, going to be some risk? This is never going to be a risk-free endeavor, and I think we have to be honest about that. But having said that, like I say, would drug testing do the trick? Probably not, because we all know that at most levels of PED use, the trainers and the people that are manipulating these drugs are usually about 5 to 10 steps ahead of the testing anyway. I've got my own thoughts on what could be done and could be done to mitigate the dangers. But of course, I have to say that rewarding the biggest guy up there versus, again, the person that brings the best package overall is one way, again, to just simply send the appropriate message that we're not just going to reward size for the sake of size. And I think that there's still a conflicting message that goes out. So that's all I'm going to say about the 212s, and then we need to have a separate show about that. So working our way down the line a bit. I didn't really, let me see, I may have my little list here. Hunter Labrada looked great. Nick Walker looked good too. He's got great shape. He's got a lot of muscle to him. That whole varicose vein thing is, boy, that's a tough one too. 212. So the 212 was won by Derek Lunsford. He looked great conditioning, but like I say, the lineup was pretty much as expected. Now, I actually found, the one class, I have a hard time kind of really wrapping my mind around is men's physique, Olympia. I don't want to say anything like that would come across badly or, come across being, disrespectful. These guys obviously, they work hard. They're in great shape. I just don't really understand the class. I don't quite get it. The board shorts and all that, the posing. Yeah, that's a tough one for me. And I'm not going to even comment on it. Let me just say that the guys in the class look great. They're in great shape. I think that, we can't, they clearly train, they clearly diet. Some of them honestly were a little big. I mean, again, I think there's a trend towards size wise. I wasn't expecting some of these guys to be as big as they were, to be honest with you. I think a couple of them, again, probably could have been easily been in up there with Bumstead, frankly, competing. And again, I don't want to hope they're not going to send the wrong message that, bigger is better. Now, if you're looking at my Facebook page, you'll see that I've been putting up a bunch of pictures actually from the women's show. I actually thought the women's show was a lot more exciting this year. I thought it was actually a lot more fun. I thought it was a bit more dynamic. I have been putting up some pictures from the women's bodybuilding, which some of you know was kind of canceled, for a time, and it was resurrected under Wings of Strength and brought back in by Jake Woods. So thanks to Jake for that. And sort of replaced with, or at the time, with women's physique class. I guess class. Let me see what that's called. There's so many classes these days. It's a little hard to keep track of here. So yeah. So Physique Olympia. So so in the open bodybuilding for women, Andrea Shaw won, and Andrea Shaw looked fantastic. She is somebody you got to see in person to fully appreciate. Pictures don't do her justice. I tell you, she walked out on stage, I was something else. So Andrea Shaw's maybe from another planet. But if you look at some of the pictures, I put some really good pictures that I took myself on my Facebook page, and maybe I'll put them on the website at some point, of Andrea and the top three girls. Those ladies look great. Honestly, they brought the conditioning. They brought the conditioning in a way that you didn't see in the men's open, to be honest with you. So physique, getting down to the physique. So they canceled women's open bodybuilding for a while and put in physique. And physique, again, was similar to what they're trying to do with men's physique, which is kind of bring back that look that people came to want and appreciate in women's bodybuilding of, leaning more towards, again, that 80s, 90s, early 2000 look where conditioning, proportion, symmetry is really the name of the game to winning that class or that division. And muscle, of course, has to be there, but you cannot win that class without that division. Sorry, I'm used to classes being an amateur national level judge, but you cannot win that division without having the conditioning, the proportion, the posing, makeup, hair, all of it's got to be there. And I really like that class. I actually come to really enjoy that class. Again, I was actually exposed to it not that long ago, having never seen it in person. And second year in a row winning with Sarah Villegas. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Natalie Cojillo was second, and Brooke Walker was third. I've got some really good pictures online of that too. Again, I tell you, the top three girls in the Physique Olympia were so good that you could have flipped a coin. I mean, I get why the judges went with Sarah again. Her lower leg development and her deep muscle separation and her muscle fullness and her top to bottom, back to front conditioning and stuff is so off the charts good that I didn't have any problems with her, with her placing where she placed. A lot of people, again, I think felt that Natalia could have walked away with it. And honestly, I would have lived with that too. And Brooke Walker, I mean, she also just was a whole package that, some people, anybody you talk to in the audience kind of had that was a very even split between how they were feeling about where those three women should have placed. I don't think anybody was blatantly disappointed. I think Natalia probably brought the conditioning. I think for her to win that division, Natalia is going to need to maybe fill out her lower body a little more because Sarah is so dominant in that area. And if she can fill out her lower body a little more and maintain that conditioning, I don't think anyone, I think Natalia would be really tough to beat. But, you know, and that would also include Sarah maybe being a little off her game. But Sarah doesn't strike me the person that's going to be off her game. So there you go. I got some things I'm going to talk about that hopefully won't get me in trouble. So working our way down, figure was a really, really competitive division this year. It was just chock full of top athletes. Sydney Gillan won again. Again, she's won a number of times now. She looked phenomenal. She is just head to toe, pretty goddamn perfect. So I don't have a lot to say there. I didn't spend a lot of time looking at figure. I got some pictures, but I was really more interested in some of the other classes, and I thought Sid coming out wasn't real surprising. So getting down to bikini, this is where I don't want to get myself in trouble because I don't want people to get mad at me because I don't want them to think I'm saying anything negative. So number one was Jennifer Dory Lorelei Chapados. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Was second. Ashley Kaltwasser was third. Maureen Blanquisco was fourth. And Elisa Bikini was fifth. So I'm not going to keep us on too long here. I'm going to make some comments about this. And I haven't gotten to wellness. Notice I have not gotten to wellness. I'm going to get to wellness in a second. Unless anybody has any comments, thoughts, opinions, anybody was there, am I agreeing with me, disagreeing with me? Let me know what you know, if you think I'm off base on something or on the money. Before I'm going to get to bikini, and then I'm talking about wellness a little bit, because wellness was kind of the wild card. Remember, this was the first ever wellness at the Olympia. So bikini, now when I was judging back in the day, bikini was just coming in. As I was sort of not stopping judging, bikini was a brand new class. And remember, there was no pro bikini because there hadn't even been enough bikini to develop professionals. So this was all done. Bikini was coming in strictly on an amateur level, which was going to a regional level. The body types and shapes that we got in bikini were all over the place because nobody quite knew what we were supposed to be looking for and what the judging standards were. But we all tended to, I think we all tended to look for what we would think of as maybe a more hourglass sort of figure, you know, again, more of a bikini figure, firm, but not hard, abs, but not sharp abs, but like a nice line down the middle, maybe a little hint, an outline of abs, was kind of what we were looking for. And I think, you know, in proportion, of course, and all that. And the body types that showed up were kind of all over the place. Now, fast forward, you know, 20 years or whatever it's been, we got a bunch of pro shows. And at this point, the bikini girls have obviously the judging and the girls that win, they've like got it down to a science. They really do. And the end point to that is that they basically all look the same. Now, when I say all the same, you're talking about like 70 or 100 beautiful women who are in great shape and all that. But to my eyes, they just all look basically like almost identical. The body type that shows up, they're quite thin to my eye. I don't want to sound negative, but I'm really not. But they're little girls, you know, they're little women. They're little women, and I don't even mean by height necessarily, but their bone structure is like very, very thin. They're small structurally women. They're you know, they've got abs, they've got obviously, you know, glutes, but the body type that's there is almost what wins, what places is almost an identical body type. There's just not a lot of variation to it, and I kind of wish personally that bikini would reward again a more hourglass, sort of voluptuous, I guess thicker shape. If I was to be honest, and again, I don't know how other people feel about that, but I haven't actually been watching because I don't tend to watch a lot of pro bikini shows. So I sat, you know, because I had a press pass, and I sat there in the pre-judging. I was right up there in the media, and I really sat there and watched it. And I have to say I was a little disappointed. And again, this is not meant to be an insult to any of the bikini competitors. Again, a lot of, you know, I like to see pretty women in bikinis, you know, as much as anybody else. The next red-blooded hetero guy or whatever. But I guess so. This brings us to wellness. So wellness was a real wild card for me because I was thinking, well, what is this going to be? I even wrote an article in Testosterone Magazine on my thoughts on wellness that I was thinking that, really, had Physique judging kind of jumped the shark. Were we going to be rewarding, imbalanced physiques, really imbalanced physiques? And, was this just kind of I don't know, just kind of a slotting in of a new division? And, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I really was. First things first, a lot of people think that wellness just kind of came out of nowhere and it was just like invented, to slot new girls in. And that's not true. Wellness has been around quite a while and is a popular division in Central American countries. I have judged a few shows in Panama, and wellness is what they do. They really don't have women's bodybuilding. They really, the body types that are down there obviously tend to be more thicker on the bottom, little waist, thicker bottom, bigger glutes. I think both culturally they prefer women, that are lean, but they don't really want them to be, really, really hard and all that. And so wellness has been around a long time. It's not new, but the Ifbb had some shows down there. NPC's had some shows down in Brazil and places to kind of test the waters, and decided to bring it, up to Gringo land. And I can say that because I have a place in Panama, and I'm supposedly an informal Panamanian, they tell me. So they brought that division up here to sort of introduce it. And the body type, I have to say, the body type, if it fits the division, and I'm going to get to this in a minute, is really pleasing. You say, people who look pictures or aren't sure will say, well, where does it fit? I don't get where it fits. And I understand that. But I have to say that when you see them up there, you understand what the difference, the judging criteria is. They fit basically between figure and bikini. They're leaner than bikini, not as lean as figure. They have bigger bottom half, their legs, nice sweepy thighs, nice sweepy hamstrings, really round glutes. Their upper body is a little bigger than bikini. A lot of people were saying, well, they're just going to be bikini with, big lower bottom, lower half. It's not true. I would say that if the body type shows up, a proper wellness body type shows up, of which like the top 5 were, you get it. You're like, okay, I get it. This works. And to be honest with you, that in my mind was kind of what I view as bikini. A more voluptuous hourglass body type. I actually really like it. And in my head of heads or whatever, back in the day, that's actually kind of more what I would have thought of to be what I would view like the future of bikini. Plenty of muscle, especially in the lower body. Obviously, it's brings in women, say more like Latina background. Maybe African American women who couldn't get into figure, because figure tends to be more athletic look, where you've got more of a square shoulder, tapered little, wider lats, little tiny hips type of thing. So I think seeing it now, the only caveat that I would say, because again, it's fairly new to the U.S. and it's going to take a while for those body types to find this division. A lot of the girls that were up there, to me, really looked like they should be in figure. I think the judges did a really good job of finding and pulling out those bodies types that were clearly of the wellness shape, and not, let's say, overly rewarding bodies that were really more figure. I would say, again, I think it still has to work itself out, but I have to say, really good job on the part of the show, of the Ifbb, and the group of making this work. As you'd expect, the top 5, I think at least 3 or 4 of the top 5 were, had flown up from, Brazil, or were from, one I think was Puerto Rican and may live in the U.S. But as you'd expect, they were mostly Latinas, which would make sense. However, like I say, so that was the wild card for me. I wasn't sure what to expect. And I will say that if the judging criteria and the judges can stay consistent with who they're rewarding, and that is really finding and rewarding that wellness shape, and sticking to it, I think that division could actually develop quite nicely. And I think you'll get it. If you see them in person, you'll understand where they fit between figure and bikini, if that makes sense. So I hope that makes some sense. That was actually, like I say, kind of a pleasant surprise to me. And only negative, which, for the first time ever, I still have to say really good turnout. But a lot of the bodies that I was looking at, and I was hoping, saying, well, I hope they don't, being new judges, being in the U.S., I hope they don't kind of gravitate towards those more obvious figure bodies, which were very lean. I mean, because figure's gotten pretty lean, overly lean, I think, for wellness, and not having the larger, more robust, developed thighs and glutes and hamstrings. Now, if the body that's in the criteria is there, they're not unsymmetrical. They're not poorly developed, or should I say disproportionate? I guess that's what I should be. I know that the comment that a lot of people had and thought was, well, this is going to be just rewarding disproportionate bodies. And I have to say, those girls, if you look at the girls that won, they're in that top slot, were not disproportionate bodies. So shout out, credit where credit is due. I take back anything negative I thought about wellness and the division. So, well done there. Other things to just comment on: the lighting was a really big stage. I thought the lighting could have been better. The lighting was also a little off. If you were facing the stage, the lighting to the right was a bit darker than the lighting to the left. And so if you were unlucky enough to be kind of stuck on the right side during prejudging and stuff, I don't know if that had some negative effects. I thought that, considering how big the classes were and stuff, they probably could have moved them around a little more left to right to just give the benefit of that lighting to everybody. But again, I've judged big shows, and when you've got that many people to go through, and you know what you're looking for, and I think some people in the back maybe think they rush it, but if you've judged long enough, you know what you're looking for. You know how to pull the people you want out really quick. Those people jump right out at you. I do think that maybe perhaps they could have moved them around a little bit more to give them the advantage of the light. So again, considering the year, you got to give credit to credit where it's due. But I think the lighting could have been a little bit better. So anyway, that's my assessment. I'm not going to drag this out. If anybody has any questions or comments, anybody there that wants to know anything, am I nuts? Or like I said, did I cover what you wanted to hear about the show? My understanding is the show, I believe, is going back to Vegas next year. That's what I was told. I was hoping it would stay in Florida, because then I could kind of make it, a yearly show for me. Whether I'm going to travel all the way to Vegas, I don't know. Like I say, the show I kind of always was kind of my yearly show was the Arnold. I'd say that the sponsors were great. The after party, the gala, was put on by Muscle Vodka. And I went to that, and my buddy Rick Collins was able to help me out getting there, because I didn't have I had my press pass, but that didn't get you in. But I like to shout out to Muscle Vodka. It's a good vodka. I've had it before. It's not the first time I've had Muscle Vodka. And I hope if I said anything during the gala from having a little too much Muscle Vodka, that whatever I said or did stays at the gala. You know who you are. Hopefully you know who you are there. But I like my vodka. That's the problem. Sometimes I like my vodka a little too much. I'm out of focus here. What's going on, camera? It's supposed to be an autofocus camera here. Come on. Hello. Okay. Anyway, all right. No comments. So obviously this has been brought to you by Alpha Joe. Tastes good, feels good. It's good for you. And maybe someday I'll have a booth myself in the Alpha Joe and at the Arnold. And I had a good time, good show. I would keep in mind what's coming up next time, and I see you guys all on the Brink Zone.